Jesus is the game changer. No matter the dreams we have in life and the plans that we lay for ourselves, when Jesus steps in, he brings that turnaround and our story becomes a completely different one. And that's an example of what we shall be listening to today as Jesus becomes the game changer in the life of our very special guest on the program, the Damascus Encounter. Welcome to the show today, and I'm glad and delighted to introduce to you the one who will be sharing his story, Dr. Joshua Suleiman. He is the Director, Marketing and Communication for Babcock University. Dr. Suleiman, welcome to the program.
My pleasure being here.
Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
So by way of introduction, do you want to tell us a little bit about who Joshua Suleiman is?
Yes, my name is Joshua Suleiman. I'm from Edo State. My father, he's late.
All right.
My mother from Kogi State, she's late. My mother had us 7 because my father had 3 wives.
All right.
And he had other children. They were Muslims. I was born into a Muslim family.
Okay.
I was born Abdul Wahab Suleiman.
Wow.
And then when I grew up, I became Joshua Suleiman.
Okay. So we'll talk about how Abdul Wahab became Joshua Suleiman. Yeah. Good to know. So today I want you to share a little bit about, judging by your name and from what you have said, growing up as a Muslim. So how much of the Islamic faith did you take part in as a child growing up?
I actually wasn't too much involved in Islam.
Okay.
But my father was particularly concerned about me going to the mosque with him to worship. But I found out that I was always rebelling for no reason at all.
Okay.
He was deeply concerned with my attitude towards Islamic religion. Although for much of my childhood life, I didn't have that opportunity of living so closely with him. But each time the opportunity came, he was always particular about me going to mosque with him. But I found out that it wasn't something that interested me. I wasn't fascinated by that idea at all. And which was why in my secondary school days, when I had friends that invited me to church, I would go with them. I had other friends who were Muslim, and when they invited me, I found that I was, objecting to their invitation to go with them to the mosque.
Okay. As you look back, was there any particular reason why you didn't just feel attracted towards the Islamic religion and you rather go with those that invite you to church?
Yeah, I think when I look back, I find it inexplicable, because I just couldn't fathom it.
Okay.
But I recall exactly that at a particular time in class, we were taking a course called Christian Religious Knowledge. And then there was a time that we discussed the exodus, of the Israelites to the promised land. And they got to a point where the teacher, took us through a particular lesson that introduced Joshua in the Bible. And there was a particular statement that he made that when the Israelites were going to the promised land, it got to a point, and Joshua asked them, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And then he asked the Israelites, would you do the same?
Choose you this day.
Choose you this day whom you will serve, and all of that. And then they got to a point, the Israelites replied and said, look, whatever you ask us to do, we will do. And so I just got enthralled, by that. And something spoke to my mind that there is something mystical about it. And somehow I had this, how will I call it? Will I say intrasensory perception of the entire scenario at the time, as if I was living in that time, as if I was there. And so I eager, to live that life, to be with these people. So it kept on, it kept on ringing in my mind, kept on impacting on me, kept on giving me meaning. Eventually, when I got to the university, right, when I got to the university, I had a friend who was a Muslim, and he would always ask me, let's go to the mosque to read. I would always go to the mosque with him to read, but I found that I was always failing my test each time I went there for no reason. I just couldn't explain it. I was always, and I had other friends who were Christians, but when they asked me, I will still go. Occasionally I go with them. But it got to a point I just decided, no, I wasn't going to go to mosque with this person again. All right? So I wasn't going there anymore. So I had a change of mind completely. However, after I left secondary school, after my university, came to Lagos, and work took me to Abuja. So it was in Abuja that I had an experience. I had an encounter.
Okay, so we'll come to talk about that experience that you had in Abuja. All the while, you were not particularly attached to any church. You would just go with friends when they ask you, let's go to church. And then, so through university days, you stopped going to the mosque to read, and then you will go to church once in a while with your friends. So the Abuja encounter, what particularly happened in Abuja?
Yes.
Abuja is the Federal Capital Territory.
Yes, it is the Federal Capital Territory. Yes. And shortly before I go, let me just, as a lead to my Abuja experience.
Okay.
Because when I got to Lagos, before I went to Abuja, I had friends, one of whom was a pastor, I had one of them was a pastor in Lagos. And as I said, we just met me, and then he decided to be involved in evangelism and invited me, and so we were doing evangelism. As I said, I was just a novice. I didn't know anything about Christianity, except for those occasional that I go to people. So and all of that. Eventually, that evangelism seed, grew to becoming a church. But I now left Lagos for Abuja now. It was even as I said at that time, the idea of even going to church on Sunday was something
strange.
Yes, it was strange, and somehow I found it unreasonable. So when I now got to Abuja, I was sitting in front of my house, and I saw people sharing tracts. So one of them came over to me and then gave me a tract. I read through it. He talked about, 7-day Sabbath and all of that. The day of worship, yes, day of worship. I read through, and he asked me if he had questions, and I said no question. So he decided to invite me to a program that was going to begin in that community, my vicinity, which was called Revelation Seminar.
Oh, interesting.
So I volunteered. Because I had nothing doing at the time. So I decided to go there in the evening. And I got there. The very first lecture that was treated had to do with day of worship. And it was, which day is the seventh day of the week? And so there were answers. First is Sunday, seventh day. And so they took us through, the moderator, had to take us, step by step through the scriptures. And then it got to a point that it became extremely,
clear,
very obvious to everyone, particularly to me, that it is Saturday.
Saturday is the Sabbath.
That is the Sabbath. That's not just the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. Not Sunday. And for me at that point in time, it was as if I had transcended. It was as if something.
A kind of fulfillment.
There was that internal peace, satisfaction, fulfillment. It was as if, so I knew that something was wrong from, day one. When I knew nothing, when I was in secondary school and all of that, I had been so inquisitive. What exactly? Something must be wrong.
It was like a puzzle.
That became,
and fit
yes. So I just got the right answer, to the questions that I had been battling with all along. And so I had no doubt at that moment that I am in the right place. Yes.
So you were in the right place, you came to the right place, the puzzle fit in, and some questions were answered. Yeah. And so we'll come back after the break to talk about what your experiences were since you became Seventh-day Adventist, especially about your baptism. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Damascus Encounter. And on the program today, we have been sharing and talking with Dr. Joshua Suleiman. So welcome back.
Thank
You got baptized, and did you have any special experience as you got baptized?
Yes, I did. Certainly I did. Because after that seminar, even before the baptism, I think that people around me noticed something quite unusual about me. Whether Christians or Muslims, they just noticed that because somehow there was that boldness to talk about what I believe in, to talk about the church and all of that. And there were people, religious organizations around. And they were always inviting me
to come fellowship with them.
Come and fellowship with us. Once in a while I will go, either act as their interpreter or, make me to do one or two things for them. And there are other ones that we say, look, we want you to be our church member. We can fund you to set up your own ministry. But having listened to that Revelation seminar, and the question of the Sabbath becoming a turning point, a decisive factor that actually made me to believe that, yes, I'm charting a new course, I'm on the right path. That alone didn't make me to buy the overtures that were extended to me by these religious organizations. So when I now got baptized, I think that it was one of the greatest moments of my life. And what struck me was to change my name, because I had to go back in history to my secondary school days, to that lecture that we had in class, where the issue of Joshua
leading this day.
Yes. So I cried when I said I was going to take the name Joshua. That was how I took the name Joshua. And believing that in my family, a Muslim family, I should be the Joshua that will take my people out
to the promised land.
Yes.
And we'll come to talk about how that happened afterwards. But you got that invitation to lead out to be a pastor, to have your own church. So how did you manage that?
I didn't have to think twice about it. I knew that, yes, being funded through pastoral ministry in a different church and being given an eminent position to pastor a church and enjoy the perquisites of office and all of that, I knew those were good things. But then they never in any way influenced my focus, because I was determined not to buy into any gimmick. I was determined not to fall a prey to anything that will not give me joy and happiness.
Okay.
So I just decided that I wasn't going to accept all of those, but to remain, an incurable believer in the truth that has just been made known and clear to me, and remain steadfast.
That's interesting.
So that was how I managed,
to turn down all
yes.
Okay.
But it's in a way influenced their behavior towards me, because they just couldn't fathom me with what they said, potential to being a minister, to being a pastor of a church, will now identify with an insignificant church, a church that has no membership that is recognizable.
And will not even give you money.
That will not give me money.
Yeah.
So it's their perception, was so high, and when different people were coming, even those who were living with me, my cousins, my uncles who were living with me, were all Muslim. And so they were on my neck. I said, look, why am I doing all of this? What sort of nonsense is all of this? All right? It weighed so heavily on me. It was so heavy on me that if not for the sheer grace of God, I would simply have,
turn back.
Yes.
And
Okay. Even, as I said, even my father, heard about it.
Yeah, so you talked about your father disappointed.
Oh, my father was visibly disappointed.
Okay.
And if anyone should disappoint him with regard to taking after him as a devout Muslim, he wasn't thinking it was going to be me. Certainly not me. So, he was such a nice man, funny man. At a point, he said, if he dies, one thing he will want me to do is to wherever he will be, was to always know that I remain a Muslim. And that if he had wives, because at that time he would tell me, look, he's going to marry more additional wives to my mother. And I asked him, why would you marry any more wives? He said, why don't I like it? If he dies, will I not inherit that? I want me to inherit them.
To inherit the wives.
To inherit his wives.
Interesting.
And so we will laugh over at it. All right? So he didn't like the idea. It was a sheer disappointment, for him. It was one of those things that really touched the root of his life. But somehow, because of that love that a father has for a child, so he was able to somehow, will I say, pardon, was somehow, but he wasn't really happy.
He wasn't happy, but he looked away from it.
Yes, he really didn't feel that.
But then you ended up being that Joshua, and somehow your siblings started gravitating and moving away. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So after I became baptized, my stepbrother, as I say, my father had 3 wives.
Okay.
My mother being the senior. By my mother, we were 7. Then 1 from the second wife, 4 from the third wife. Yeah. So my stepbrother, the only one from the second wife, learned about me giving my life to Christ, decided to also give his life
also become Christian.
To Christ. So he became a Christian. Today he's a pastor. He's a pastor in another church. My immediate younger brother learned about me, and he decided also to leave Islam to join Christianity. The lastborn, today, is also a pastor. So he's a pastor in another church.
That's interesting.
Then my elder brother, I think at about that same period as my stepbrother, you know, got converted, also became a Christian.
So almost everyone changed to Christianity,
Yeah.
and all can be traced to the fact that you became a Christian and everybody wanted to be.
By the
That's
special grace
interesting.
of God.
So as you look back today, having become a Seventh-day Adventist, do you have any regrets? You left your job as, you want to share a little bit how you left your job and now you work with Babcock University?
Yes, no regrets whatsoever. When I accepted to be an Adventist, first I didn't know the challenges that will come with it.
Okay.
The idea that we are not going to work on a Sabbath didn't cross my mind.
Okay.
The idea that you were not going to do certain things didn't cross my mind, because the Christian that I dealt with, related with, you know, conversed with, have comradeship with, you know, could do anything. And for me at that time, any Christian or Christian should do those things. But becoming an Adventist, working every day of the week as a journalist,
Exactly.
that doesn't recognize a holiday, all right, it was a toll on me. And I did that. I worked on Sabbath, you know, for a number of years. But each time I knew the hurt that I felt. I knew how I grieved that I was. Until one day, my publisher, you know, asked after me, and he was told that I wasn't in the office and that I was in the church, and that I said I was going to the church. He called me on a Sunday. As I said, we work every day. He called me on a Sunday when we met in the office. Why wasn't I in the office yesterday? I said I went to church. What church is that? I said Seventh-day Adventist. What church? You know, with scorn. You know, he asked, what's church? And I explained to him. He said, next Saturday, you have to be in the office. By next Saturday, I wasn't in the office. And so it became like a cat and mouse game between me and the publisher. And at a point, I decided I was going to resign, because associated with that were some other things that he was bringing up. All right? Okay. And I decided, having risen to the position of an editor, I just decided I was going to leave the job, and I left the job. But they had no choice. He had to call me back. He called me back and said I should do my job, but if I was going to church on Saturday, I need to assign my duties to whoever I deemed capable, you know, to do it, and all of that. So as time went on, I got one person, one elder in our church, to be writing something on Sabbath for the paper.
Okay.
Yes, it went off for some weeks, and the man stopped it. Again, I allowed that, you know, to the whole distance to fizzle out, and then got late Professor Alao.
Okay.
Yeah, Dayo Alao. So Professor Dayo Alao was writing about marriage and all of that, and infusing, you know, things about Adventism and all of that into it. But at a point, he noticed that I was still bringing something about Sabbath, so he stopped the column. And so it wasn't good. You know, from there and all of that, we were not really in good terms. So I left. I didn't just leave, but by God's special grace, I rose to being a managing director. So I called the shots for some time. And then I left. Even before I came here, I had been invited. Somebody had said, come to this place, come to this place.
Come and work in Babcock.
Come and work in Babcock University. And each time I kept prevaricating, you know, and all of that. And so one day I got an offer from Channels Television through the late Mukoro. I've forgotten his full name. Okay. So he was a consultant with Channels Television. So, and he said, John, the owner,
John Momo,
wanted to meet with me. And so I got there. for an interview, and then we talked, and he looked at me and said, number one, he said, you have the personality, you have the screen personality, you have the voice, but we could still train you, and all of that. He said, okay, we'll get back to you. So when I got home, I just prayed over it, right? I prayed over it and said, look, if God just decide for me, because shortly after I got a call from Babcock University that, I was needed for a job. So meanwhile, I have been, my entire life had been in the media, and I wanted to remain in the media for as long as possible. Mm. But when I put this to prayer, eventually this just, came up, I had no chance to even think about it.
And so it became Babcock.
It became Babcock for
me.
And
you came to Babcock.
And here I am today.
That's interesting. And since then, you have been working here, and you've had a very wonderful time working in Babcock University. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing your story. And I want to assure you that I believe someone has been touched, and perhaps also someone will have to tell his own story someday, drawing inspiration from yours. That's Dr. Joshua Suleiman, who has shared his story on the Damascus encounter. Perhaps you would like to share your own story, how Jesus came in and became the game changer for you. And just, if anything else you want to take away today, choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Keep serving Jesus until we come your way next time. It's bye-bye.